Okay, people, it's time to talk politics. And since we are talking politics, well, I'm going to need to add beer to that. So, let me get it right here. We have this baby. Take a look. That's Modern House Brewing right there. Modern House Brewing Company. This is the Artisan's Golden Ale. It's in a nice big bottle here. If you follow me on Instagram, guys, then you'll see that recently I went to a show called CraftCon Asia. That's like a big convention for craft beers here in Taiwan, and it was really, really cool. And I actually met the guy who makes these right here, this beer, this local Taiwanese microbrew, and he gave me a couple bottles of that and another type of beer that he had. And I also got this cool coaster thing, so there you go, you can see that up close. Modern House Brewing Company. I really like the artwork on that. It's really, really cool. Alright, so enough yapping. Let me open up that beer and pour it into my glass here. And then we'll try it, and then we'll get into the politics. Alright, beer is open, and now time to pour. Lovely, there we go. Okay, so like I said, this is from Modern House Brewing Company. This is a Taiwanese microbrew, and this is the Artisan's Golden Ale. And on the bottle it says it is a crisp, light-bodied ale with a hint of tropical hop aroma and flavor, smooth and refreshing. This beer will keep you coming back for more and more. And it has a 5% ABV, that's alcohol by volume, and then an IBU of 20. So, I've had this before, but I'm gonna drink it on camera right now for you guys, and tell you what I think. Still good. Still pretty good. I like that. It's not bad. It's got some flavor to it. It's not too strong. And let's see here. I think it mentioned... Yeah, okay. So like a hint of tropical hop aroma. I'm definitely getting that. There's a little hint of something in there. Bit of flavor to it. And it's good. It's good. I definitely recommend this. It's not my favorite beer in the whole wide world, but it's pretty damn good, guys. It's not bad. And it would do really, really well if you're in a country like Taiwan, which is very, very hot most of the year. So, yeah, cool. There you go. If you want this, then I will have a link down in the description box of this video where you'll be able to click and find out about Modern House Brewing Company, and also find out about if you want this for your bar or your restaurant, or even if you just want it for your own personal use. My buddy is a distributor / importer, and you'll be able to well, you'll be able to get your hands on this. So yes, the politics. Okay, we have an election coming up on the 24th. Campaigns are in their final phases, and flyers have been given out. I got a few here to show you guys. Here's a KMT flyer. There you go. It's kind of what it looks like. Okay, and then we got another flyer here. I don't know the affiliation of this this lady here, who's holding a pen for some reason. But there you go. Okay, so yeah, flyers have been handed out. As always, they've also handed out tissue packets. I got a few here. These guys are DPP. And another one with this girl here, also DPP. And another with this gentleman here, also DPP. Alright. And lastly, there's also some knickknacks that have been given out. I got this keychain here, which lights up. There you go. Cool. So they gave out those things like they always do. Speeches have been made, debates have been had, and there's been a lot of ads played on TV and here online. Actually, when I'm on YouTube, I've been seeing some campaign ads. Anyway, before we get really deep into it though, I feel like some background on politics in Taiwan is needed, okay? So the first thing that you should know is that, like the United States, Taiwan also has a president. That's her just there. Her name is Tsai Ing-wen. And just like the United States, Taiwan holds its elections for president every 4 years. In 2016, she was elected as president and she took over from Ma Ying-jeou, who was the former president from a different party. The next thing you should know is that just like the United States, Taiwan is basically a two-party country. In America, we have Republicans and Democrats, that's red versus blue. And in Taiwan, we have the KMT, that's the Chinese Nationalist Party, and the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, and it's green versus blue. Now, it differs a little in that in America now, these days, if you run for office as someone from a third party, you basically have no chance at all, sadly, of gaining power. In Taiwan, though, that is not the case. Here we have the New Power Party, we have the Taiwan Solidarity Union, and the People First Party, and more, who in the past have gained some seats in government, and even now hold seats in government. But really, the power rests with the main two parties, that's the DPP and the KMT. The next thing you should know is that in Taiwan, like in America and elsewhere around the world, people from certain groups tend to vote in certain ways. People who live in certain areas tend to vote in certain ways. These are generalizations, of course, not rules, so don't freak out. I know it's not all of Group X doing Action X, I know that. But for what it's worth, I think you should know the following. So, Aboriginal people, they tend to vote KMT, they tend to vote blue. Hakka people, they tend to vote the same way. Mainlanders, those who are descended from the KMT troops that fled China at the end of the Chinese Civil War, they tend to vote blue, they tend to vote KMT. Minnan or Hoklo people, they tend to vote DPP, they tend to vote green. Okay? So that's a breakdown of the people. Regionally, people who live in Taiwan South, they tend to vote DPP, they tend to vote green. People who live on the East Coast, in Jinmen and in Matsu, those off-lying islands, now they tend to vote KMT, they tend to vote blue. And I would be really surprised if these regions flipped their allegiance to the opposite party or pan-color camp. It would kind of be like the situation if in America all of a sudden Californians started voting for Republicans. And it would be like if, I don't know, Idaho all of a sudden started voting for Democrats. Like, it's just most likely not going to happen. So yeah. And the last piece of background I will give you is that, like in America, where we have in between presidential elections, we have a midterm election, which we just had. Here in Taiwan, between presidential elections, we have local elections. And the local elections are often called the 9-in-1 elections. This is when people get to vote on positions like city mayor, county magistrate, town chief, and on and on and on. And you can, because it happens in between presidential elections, you can kind of look at it like a judgment by the people on how the current ruling party is doing, kind of a vote of confidence, if you will, on how the ruling party is doing. And this is the election I was referring to at the start of the video. This election is the local 9-in-1 election that we're having right now. the kind of Taiwan midterm election. A little segue there, let's dive in. Alright, so last time there were local elections in 2014, and the map looked like this. It did not turn out well for the KMT and former President Ma Ying-jeou, as you can see. People were really angry with him over many things, but really it mostly seemed to surround the issue of him trying to get too close to China, politically and economically. That kind of led to, let's call it a civil uprising, known as the Sunflower Student Movement. That saw massive protests break out on the streets, and you had young people storm into government buildings and occupy the buildings and barricade themselves inside to stop the police coming in and taking them out and beating them up. Now, eventually that came to an end, of course, but after the Sunflower Student Movement, it really felt like the KMT was done. Like, people were just fed up, like they were over it and they wanted change. And that's why the KMT got punished in 2014. They really got their asses handed to them. The KMT before, they held 14 out of 22 municipalities and counties. After the 2014 9-1 local election, they went down to 6. They went from 14 to 6. They got their asses handed to them. And after that, people, after the 2016 presidential election, where President Tsai Ing-wen of the DPP, gained power, people acted like this was it. Like, never again would the KMT regain its previous hold on power. They said all kinds of things like young people hate them more, and people distrust them more and more, and they dislike them, and they really dislike mainland China, and the KMT is too wrapped up with China and the idea that there should be eventual reunification with China, and people more and more identify as Taiwanese and only Taiwanese, and on and on and on and on. But you know what? Look, I gotta be honest. I think people who talk like that, they're making a mistake with that, and I think the KMT is gonna make a bit of a comeback in this election. Just like in America, how you had the Republicans, make a comeback after Barack Obama came into power. And people were acting like, oh, well, now Obama's in power and the Democrats are in power, the Republicans are done for. We saw that was not the case, Really, I think all of this kind of centers around money and the economy. It's really the most important issue for people, here and pretty much all over the world. It's money, The wallet comes first. It comes first before race, before ethnicity, before religion or the environment or anything. Money comes first. The wallet comes first. It always does. It's human nature. People care about money the most out of anything. That's really trumps everything. And Taiwan's economy for a long time has been depressed and stagnant. Taiwan used to be known as an Asian tiger economy. It's not a tiger economy anymore. The tiger is dead. It's been dead, People make the same amount of money every year, and they never seem to get a raise. They never seem to get ahead. Prices are slowly rising. There's inflation. It always happens, and that puts pressure on people. The price of a house, the price of an apartment, it's freaking insane. It's out of control. It's unbelievable. And no normal working family here can afford one. They can't even dream of it. They'd have to work for centuries to be able to afford it. And the birth rate in Taiwan, which I've talked about before, it continues to fall, and it doesn't really bode well for the future of Taiwan's, social safety net and infrastructure and national security. It just doesn't. You have to have people. You have to have young people coming up. You have to have at least as many, if not more, young people coming up as you have old people dying off or starting to take pensions, or you're in big trouble. Is this all the fault of the president? Is this all the fault of Taiwan and the DPP and the pan-green people? Of course not. No, of course not. You know, they didn't start these problems, and 2 years in power is not nearly enough time to fix all of that. I mean, these are big issues. But you know, you have to be seen by the public to at least be trying to remedy the situation. And that's the issue. It doesn't look like things are getting better. It doesn't feel like the government is doing anything to help get housing prices down. It doesn't feel like their attempts to get the birth rate up are going to work. It doesn't feel like they're doing anything to get the cost of living down. It doesn't feel like they're making workers' lives easier or better. You know, in fact, it seems that it got worse for workers because the DPP backed down on giving them more holidays, on giving them more rest time, and giving them what Westerners at least would consider as a normal work week, like a normal 5-day work week, Monday to Friday. They kind of backed down on all that. Also, the Thai administration, they also carried out pension reforms, which, I can be honest, seemed reasonable to me because you had these old retired people making way more money in some cases than people who were, actually working now in the economy. And the cuts, if I remember right, were not that drastic. It seemed pretty reasonable, but look, people are people. Nobody likes austerity. Nobody. It's never a popular thing. Austerity is not a popular thing. No one cheers and hoots and hollers for cuts. They don't, And so for that reason mainly, but also along with several other smaller issues, I think we're going to see the DPP and the pan-green side of politics here in Taiwan. They're going to lose some ground. They are. Okay. So now there's another big thing we need to talk about in relation to this election, but that's going to have to come in part 2 because this video is getting long and it's getting kind of out of control. So stay tuned, guys. It's very, very important stuff. I'm going to take one more drink of beer here. Very, very good. Again, that's from Modern House Brewing Company. They are a microbrew here in Taiwan. Anyway, guys, please tell me if you agree with my assessment on these 9-in-1 local elections, these Taiwanese midterm elections. Tell me if you agree with my assessment. Tell me if you don't agree with my assessment. Tell me if there's anybody that you like in particular that you want to see win, or anybody that you hate in particular and you want to see lose. You let me know. Please stay tuned for part 2. There's something very, very new and very, very important and exciting that we need to talk about in relation to these elections. But like I said, this video is going on way too long, so we'll stop it right here. Thank you for watching. Please remember to comment, rate, share, and subscribe. And bye-bye.